Kayfun Lite review time. Alright, well, now that nonsense out of the way, we're going to do a two-part video. Part one of this video is going to be a review on the Kayfun Lite. Part two of this video is going to be how I rebuild it with a micro-coil and cotton, which is how I've been getting the best performance out of it. So let's cut over and take a look at how this thing works. What I've done here is I've gone ahead and taken apart the Kayfun Lite into all of its parts. There are, to me, 9 parts in total. It's a lot to keep track of. You've got 2 parts for your chimney section. You've got 1 part, this is your bottom tank section. You've got the atomizer deck. You've got the top and middle part of your tank section. You've got your top cap and your drip tip. And the 9th part is this little baby screw that I lost when I took it apart. And I had to go and find it. So luckily it's magnetic. Alright, so I've drained all the liquid out before I took it apart. And what we're going to do, I'm going to go ahead and clean it, and we'll build a new coil on camera, and we'll also build a new wick on camera, and we'll put it back together, and then we'll see how it vapes. Okay, so I've cut off a 8-inch piece of this A1 Kanthal, 28 gauge, and I've got my 5/64 bit. So I will take it and I will put my thumb over the first lead, and I will just wrap it nice and tight. I learned this technique from Rip Trippers. He has a YouTube channel as well. You want to make sure these wraps are as tight together and touching as possible. I'm going to do 10 wraps. Alright, so there's 10. And then what I'll do, because there's always this extra piece that's hanging off and it's kind of, you know, not really in line with anything, what I'll do is I'll back that guy out, and I like to have for the Kayfun, I like to have the wires going opposite directions. It makes it getting on the atomizer deck a lot easier. So once we get that, we'll go ahead and take it off. Of the drill bit, and then this is, you can use tweezers. I use my saw because they've got like a spring-loaded clamp. Just drop it right on in there and compress it down a little bit. And what this is going to do, this is going to flatten out the rest of your coils. It makes it really tight and exactly what you want. And then you can go on ahead and break out the torch. And what I do is I torch it for about 10 seconds on each side. This is gonna set that coil so that it doesn't flex. And I'll just torch it until it's cherry red, really, really hot, and let it cool down, and then do it again on the other side. So there's one side. I'll also torch out my leads a little bit. Cherry red, torch out my lead, and let it cool down. I'm going to flip it over, and I do each side twice. Torch it cherry hot. And let it cool down. Flip to the other side. Torch it. And that should be good. Alright, so you don't want to touch it right now because it's pretty hot, but this is what you're going to end up with. It's going to be really, really tightly wound coil. Take it out of this pliers here. And it ends up being really springy. The coil itself doesn't move. And if it does move, it goes right back to where it was. It ends up being really springy, so it's nice. There you go. It's already cooled down. So what we can do now is we can trim our leads. I'm hoping this one's right around 1 ohm. After you back out that last wrap or two to straighten everything out, it's gonna take out 2 wraps. So probably it's at 8 or 9 wraps of this A1 Canthal. So hopefully it's not going to be too low. I don't want it to be less than, say, like 0.6, 0.7 ohms. I mean, I'm going to use it on a mech, but I don't want the resistance to be too low. I mean, on a micro-coil, the resistance being that low, you don't really gain too much other than it heats up a little bit quicker. Okay, so we've got our coil wound up, and we've got our atomizer deck for the Kayfun Lite. We're going to go ahead and put this guy on there. What I usually do is I'll put one side on first and get it snugged down, and then I'll worry about adjusting out the other side and making sure that the coil's positioned correctly over the air hole. Sometimes it helps if you put the drill bit that you made the coil with back through the coil to kind of position it out. Grab my drill bit here. So I'll put this guy back through so that my coil is back on the drill bit, and that makes it a lot easier to position the coil. So I just make sure that my coil is directly over the hole, and I'll tighten down one lead first. I kind of bend it around so that it's I'm having autofocus problems tonight, but that's okay. So we'll tighten this guy down first. You can see that's kind of step one. I twisted this guy around on this side and pulled it tight, and then tightened down the screw. And then we'll do the same for the other side. This is the one where you want to make sure that you get your coil adjusted right where you want it. So again, I'll pull it tight, twist it around, and screw down the post. I gotta say, the Kayfun Lite, like, this is actually a pretty easy build compared to some of the other RBAs I've done. The screws work nicely. They catch the wire every single time, it seems. Alright, so I'm going to make sure these two guys are tight before I take out my drill bit. Do a final position. Make sure that my coil is still straight and nice right over the middle of that air hole. And then I'll go ahead and twist out my drill bit so that it doesn't ruin the coil. And then what we can do is we can go in and break off our leads. You can break them off, or you can use nail clippers or whatever. I just find it easier and quicker to break them off. And then once we get those guys broken off, we'll double check and make sure that the coil is clearing the deck, because the deck is metal on this one. It's not coated, so it is a stainless deck. It will short out, so it's going to be really, really difficult to see. But you want to make sure there's a very small gap in between your coil and where your airflow is coming through. Really small gap. So that looks good. Alright, we'll put that guy down. And then this is that cotton. So I'm going to pull off a little tuft here. Break it. Now, this is the important part. The first time I built this with the silica, I didn't build it right. I cut the silica too long, and it went down these juice channels, and I thought that that would aid in the wicking, but it didn't. It actually clogged it up, and I was getting dry hits left and right. So learn from my mistakes. Learn from my mistakes. So we'll go ahead and twist it here to a nice point. Pop it through our micro-coil and pull it tight. Now, this is the important part. This is where you'll want a good pair of scissors to make sure that you can get this cut right. What I'll do is I'll cut the wick so that it's right at that top deck. You don't want it any longer than that, because then you'll cover up your juice channels and it'll get dry and you'll get dry hits, and then you'll be angry and you'll be like, Creeper, what are you doing, man? And I'll be like, well, you didn't watch because I showed you the right way to do it. Alright, so I'll make sure they're nice and puffed out. That way they can hold the maximum amount of liquid. And when you put your chimney on, these guys are going to sit really nice right on top of that upper deck. So let's go ahead and start reassembling it. And what I'm going to do, we'll do a test fire on it first. We're going to put the mid chimney section back on. Put it on first. This way we have something to kind of catch that juice. And you just tighten it all the way down. And we'll look in there and make sure that our wicks are nice and sitting flat on that top deck. And what I'll do is I'll kind of fan them out. That way they have the maximum surface area across that deck. That way they can wick up as much liquid as they really can. So I make it nice and pretty in there. And then I'm going to be using 5.0. It's my favorite liquid right now from Phoenix Vapor Shop. I'm just going to drip some in there. We'll do a test fire just to make sure it's going to work right. We can also get an ohm reading off of it too. Like I said, I don't want it over about 1.1, 1.2, and I don't want it less than 0.7. So hopefully we did it right this time. So we'll go in. I'll throw it on the Tesla because it's what I've got easily accessible right now. Probably help if I turned it on. Alright, so we're coming out to 1.1 ohms, which is good. That makes me pretty happy. But that also means that it's not going to fire on the Tesla. So give me a second here. Let me get another device. We'll use the VTR. It's capable of firing down to 0.6 ohms, I believe. Need my adapter. There it is. Should have had this ready. I apologize. Alright, so the VTR, which is nice and fingerprinted up, is claiming this guy to be 1.2 ohms. So we'll go in and give it a test fire here. Oh yeah, beautiful. Very nice. This will work just fine. Okay, so what we're going to do now, I'm going to put on the top chimney. Actually, let's go in and make sure this guy's nice and saturated first before we put it back together. I'd hate to burn out that cotton on that first drag. Tighten this guy down nice and snug. And then we'll put on our bottom tank section. Again, we'll make sure it's nice and snug. Then I'm going to use the clear section again. I like being able to see what my juice level's at. You want to be careful screwing this in because it's plastic and you're screwing it into really high grade stainless steel. You don't want to strip out the plastic. You don't want to do it too tight. And then we'll put on the top tank section. And we'll put on the top cap. Now the top cap, you've got to make sure that the chimney slides right up against this O-ring that's in here. Try that guy out. There's an O-ring in the middle of the top cap. that you got to make sure it seals. If it doesn't seal, you're going to leak juice everywhere, and you're not going to be happy. Make sure it's nice and snug. And there you go. It's all put back together. And wait, we're missing one thing. Da-da-da, drip tip. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and fill this guy up. This is another reason I really like these needle tip bottles. It just makes it a lot easier to pull your liquid out. Makes you feel kind of like a doctor too. So we'll go in and pull our liquid out. Now this tank holds about 5 mils. This is just a 3 mil syringe, so I'll probably have to do this twice. So we'll just go ahead and put liquid in. Get a little bit more out. Should be good. And fill it the rest of the way up until it starts squirting out the top. Alright, and then we'll find our fill screw. Put that guy back in. Bring it back up, and we'll have a vape. Okay, we've got her all loaded up. Again, like I said, I'm using 5.0. This is a 1.1 ohm, 1.2 ohm micro-coil that I've got in here, and I've got cotton, and this is the Kayfun Lite I've got on a mech. The battery is not fully charged, probably around 3.9 volts. Let's go ahead and see what it vapes like. Really, really nice. That's a lung hit. I'll do a normal hit real quick. Just mouth to lung. Really, really nice. One more. Now you can see I didn't get a single dry hit off of that, and I just filled it up. I haven't gotten a single dry hit off of this since I started wicking it correctly, and not using silica, believe it or not. And you know it's a silica RBA, but you can use cotton in a micro-coil and get tip-top performance. So again, that's the Kayfun Lite. It looks really nice with its clear tank section. I've been really pleased with it. I haven't had too many issues, just the normal building issues in a really small space because of my big fumbly hands. Overall, it gets a thumbs up. Thanks for watching. Keep calm, keep vaping.